Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Tea with HRT. I'm Sarah, joined by my co-host Brenda. Hi, Brenda. And we're joined today by our CEO and founder, Eileen's. A quick little bit about Eileen's if this is your first episode with us. She has 25 plus years of HR expertise with an MBA from Temple, experience as a professor and a coach. She brings incredible insight to today's conversation. Welcome, Eileen's.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're talking all about an HR horror story that is the battle with leadership that sometimes HR has. So what we thought would be interesting is reading a Reddit story that somebody posted asking for advice and seeing what somebody with 25 years plus of experience dealing with leadership could bring to the table and give advice to this person.
All right, so let's just get into it. This person says, I have become increasingly frustrated that leadership will not listen to guidance from HR. I'm not sure why the HR department exists if they're just going to do whatever they want. I understand that HR is an advisory role and the ultimate decision is not mine to make, but I feel like I'm not bringing any value if everything I try to warn them about or advise is completely ignored. Then I am the one who has to deal with all the legal fallouts that I originally advised them would occur if they move forward with their plans. How have you been successful in reasoning with leadership to follow the guidance you gave, even after they have said they don't want to do what was suggested? Wow.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that I've absolutely seen that in all my years, and it's shown up in different ways. Some of it to the detriment of the company, and also to the detriment of that HR person. So I see you, I feel you, Reddit poster, because we experience this all the time. So I think that when leadership in general doesn't want to listen to HR, there's something that's not aligning in terms of the value set. Sometimes HR is seen as like we're too cautious or we're too risk averse. And what happens when you work with people who are risk averse is that it slows down that creative spark or it slows down the opportunity to move forward quickly. And leadership just needs to get things done, right? And they have this sort of like hurried sense of urgency to get this stuff over the goal line. And we work with a lot of agencies, so when I kind of explain things, I'll kind of think about, like creative agencies or the agency model in general. You've got deadlines coming at you sideways, you've got clients, they might be upset, you might be dealing with crisis. And when HR says, no, 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 smack, 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 you got to slow down here and we give them the reasons why, it may not always align to why they're doing what they're doing too. So I have some advice for HR people. I think get to know what that underlying value thing piece is with that leadership member because they might be saying, I need to work so quickly here. I don't have time to have a conversation because they're overwhelmed or they're overworked and they've got clients that are upset or projects that have really, really tight deadlines or just an inordinate amount of work. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, of course. And they may not have time to have a difficult conversation with an employee or a conversation that says you're not performing and you may be fired later, right? It might be this combination of things. And then when you come in as HR and you say, slow down, I need you to document something, I need you to have this conversation, they're like, are you kidding me? These clients aren't waiting for me to document something. The last thing on my list that will never get done. So conversations have to happen. Communication has to happen. What is happening in your world that's keeping you from doing this? So instead of HR coming in and saying, why haven't you documented this yet? You could say something like, what can I do to help you document this? Or what can I do to understand what you're going through? Or tell me a little bit more about why this, what's happening here that I'm not getting this documentation because I need that in order to terminate someone, or I need them to understand whether or not a termination is a good next step for you. So that's one. What have I found is successful is that understanding the business too, and understanding the emotions that that leader is going through, and also the employees are going through. When I have these sort of like very caring and charismatic leaders, they're attuned to what their employees are feeling, and they listen to HR because HR are kind of close to the ground when it comes to the people. But when you have a leader that's the last thing on their mind because of the work, I try to relate to them and I talk their talk and I talk their language. So if I find that like really quick thinker, or I find like that person who's like has no time for even themselves or their life, I talk to them as fast as they came in so that we can be on the same page behavior wise. So I ask that you become this like chameleon person in HR to kind of go toe to toe in a behavioral sense so that you can get through to them. And my last sort of piece of advice for an HR person is at the end of the day, when they don't listen, you have to document for yourself and you just have to say, this is the advice I've given. These are the risks that you're taking. I'm sending it all to you in writing so that you understand that this is of my care and concern for you and the organization. And last, like worst case scenario, that's going to help just keep the HR person compliant. Because at the end of the day, you can say risks out loud all you want, but then what do you have to prove that you've really given this advice when the finger's pointed back at you? So, I've been in many situations where I've had to reach out to the company's lawyers, I've had to reach out. But I think the underlying thing here is that when someone does become a leader, where is the training coming from? Because if they knew that they could be personally liable for not managing correctly, or supervising in a non-consistent way, or favoritism or discrimination, maybe they would understand that if there was this personal liability at stake, and that's kind of what we do. Like we kind of give people this like understanding of, and if you don't do this, this is what can happen to you personally. Just giving them that education and this like, I care for you, and this is why I'm being this incessant crazy HR person. Not just because I want you to follow the rules, but because I'm looking out for you as an individual, as a leader, not just the employee. Like, what's in it for them at the end of the day?
I guess to kind of go off of that, because that was great advice for the Reddit poster, but also for myself, as like being a director and working with so many different clients now, that's very helpful, kind of strategies. Our next question for you is like, how do you balance being an advisor versus, HR's responsibilities to employees and leadership and legally?
HR I honestly think it's in the best position to be neutral. And I think it really starts in the HR person's head. There have been many times where you can find yourself siding with an employee or siding with an owner or siding with the organization and the brand. And if you stop to think about like, what is the balance here and how can I be most effective? It's just kind of thinking about everything in this neutral sense. So I'm most effective when I can go at a company and give like this non-emotionally connected answer to their very emotionally connected problem. And that is the beauty of being in HR. Detach yourself, think of the problem from this other sort of like view and give the best advice that you would with the information you have. And the other thing is find the information that you don't have. We sometimes get pieces of the story and then we are presented with pieces that we were missing, and it makes our advice look silly or not effective or out of compliance because we didn't have information we have. So you've got to be investigators, you have to be sleuths, you have to be behavioral analysts, you have to be neutral, and you have to always kind of balance how you're presenting information so that it's fair and compliant for everybody.
I think that's also like just a key thing, especially when you like as somebody who's new to HR, it's like one of the big skills you learn of like how much of a people person like you have to be in general, but then how much you have to realize how can I get this answer without A, decreasing buy-in from that person, and B, having it come off as like an attack of what are you not telling me? But
Right.
what are you not telling me? Like what do I need to know that you don't want to say because it might make you look bad, make somebody else look bad, but it's something like we as a company need to know to get in front of for the next time.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we use calibrated questions when we're doing that digging. So I'm not always going to say, why didn't you tell me that? I'd say, what can we do to make sure we have all the information that we have to make the best decision that we can make? So just knowing how to say, ask questions and say things in a way that doesn't shut that other person down is good. So if I'm working with a straight shooter, I might go in and just go like, why don't we have this information? Can you get it for me? As opposed to if I'm working with a different type of leader who would see that as attacking, I would say, can we make sure that we're getting as much information as we possibly can? what can I do to make sure that we do that consistently?
I think bouncing off of that, in those conversations, are there red flag words that HR professionals should be aware of and on the lookout for?
Yes. Accommodations. So I think that consistency is super key in HR. I work with so many groups, and there are times where I hear these sort of like casual accommodations being done for employees and not being something that's universally known, not even by HR. So if you're working in an organization and you have managers who are like, oh, you get chronic migraines, that's okay. You don't have to put your camera on for any meeting. And yet, you have an employee that you're writing up because you have a cameras on policy and they're not following it. And maybe they suffer from migraines too. So, like, there's so much of this world of like, there's so many things that can go wrong in HR. And if you don't know what other managers are doing or other leadership members are doing, you should know. So, like, when I hear a type of conversation that has to do with accommodations, I immediately go, oh my gosh, this is an ADA accommodation, and not everybody knows that you're doing that. Or when I hear, I just want to let someone go, huge red flag for me because I'm like, so you've already made up your mind. What are we dealing with here? Are we actually trying to get this person to succeed, or are you done and you just don't want to work with someone? Or I went with my gut. And that kind of scares me. And sometimes people's guts are like on point. I've met a lot of people's guts where I'm like, wow, you've got a great brain gut connection, like amazing. But there are other guts where I'm like, I don't know if you should be following your gut, especially in the hiring process when people say like, I'm going to go with my gut, huge red flag for me because I'm like, well, what does your gut tell you? Does it like give you that they're just like me vibe? Or is it giving me they went to my same school, or oh, this is my friend's daughter, and like I just have a good feeling about this, right? Like, so those types of things are huge red flags, and we can name so many others because and I love them because it just adds to that fun stuff that we do where it's like, what are some things that we need to look out for? But those I think would be my top three to name today.
Well, thank you, Eileen. That was really helpful. A lot of helpful tips, a lot of things that I definitely learned, and I hope the leaders, and aspiring leaders listening can pick up as well. I think this is a good place to kind of finish or end off our podcast. This episode, it's been super, super insightful. I guess we'll start with Eileen's. What are you drinking? You seem excited to share.
I'm almost done with my decaf caramel macchiato coffee.
Um,
Thanks, Sarah.
I have a pumpkin cold brew. It is the season and I am fully. Brenda,
Super
what do
on
you?
brand. I'm almost done, but I have my coffee here, my iced coffee from this morning. Let's cheers to loving HR and being in HR. Yay! All
Woo!
right, cheers. Thanks for joining us on Tea with HRT. We hope you got some laughs, some insights, and maybe even a few things you can actually use. If you like this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell a friend. Find us on social media, links are all in the description, and let us know what you think or what you want to hear more about at tea@hrtransformed.com. Catch you next time on Tea with HRT, where work meets warmth.